Hello everyone and welcome back to the Last Dish podcast. We are very happy to once again be joined by News and Star sports reporter Jon Colman. Jon, thank you for coming onto the show once again. Tonight we are talking about the overall state of Carlisle United at the minute, a discussion that could be continued for weeks on end, I think, but we'll try and encapsulate it down into an hour or so for you all. Jon, I won't ask you to encompass it all into one answer, but tonight we're talking about what's gone wrong. And I suppose there's a lot of different talking points, a lot of different reasons to why the club is where it is.
Yeah.
In your eyes, is there a potential largest contributor to the current situation at the club, or is it a mix of different things all kind of coming together?
Yeah, I don't think we should probably fixate on looking for one thing at the exclusion of anything else. I think you've got to factor in a number of things, to be honest. I mean,
I think I read a book once that quoted Joe Royle saying nothing's more important than your recruitment in football. Get that right and you're well set. So let's start there.
Yeah.
Look at the recruitment, look where it's led Carlisle, look at the resources that's gone into that recruitment, look at the volume of players who've gone through this season, and look at the position we're in. I hear you talking before the Wimbledon game, 6 points adrift at the bottom of the Football League, 12 points adrift of fourth bottom.
Yeah.
That's where we're at here. That's just the sign of pretty cataclysmic failure, isn't it, really?
Definitely.
So no one can say that recruitment has worked in any way or done anything other than backfired, because there's just no evidence against that, is there? So, and then you can break that down into, the recruitment of last January, of the summer, and of this January, and I guess they were all approached in slightly different ways, perhaps, with maybe slightly different priorities at times. But what has it equipped Carlisle with ultimately? To fight for their lives at the bottom of the Football League. A squad that Mark Hughes has said has got a certain limitation fitness-wise in terms of certain players being able to last the course. I've not spoken to anyone who would disagree with the argument that we're short up front in terms of goals and a certain sort of stature.
Yeah, definitely.
To cope with the battles that we're in. Matt Dennis has offered some of that, hasn't he, in the glimpses we've seen of him, but the fact that's become a degree of reliance in the circumstances after all these transfer windows we've had. I know there's been a couple of injuries, etc., of course, but even still, we knew this predicament going into January. What have we come out of it with? It's been far from good enough, and it points to some fundamental flaws in what's gone on, whatever processes have been in place, and whoever's been overseeing the different parts of that, just not been good enough, because it's still by a margin statistically the worst team in the Football League, and compared to the money spent, that's it's even worse, isn't it? We're staring non-league in the face. So that's been a mess, really, we have to say. And then you look at the timing of certain decisions. Getting rid of one manager the day after a window closed, getting rid of another manager on the last hours of the next window, where the squad had been totally refitted, seemingly to fit his style of play and system and the direction the club wished to go in. So we've had a change then. So we're on the third manager or head coach, all with different sort of, I guess, tactical leanings, you could probably say. I mean, the difference between Simpson and Williamson was quite dramatic. I think the difference from Williamson to Hughes maybe hasn't been quite as dramatic, but it's still been quite clear.
Yes,
how Hughes has been setting up and how he's approached certain games too. So that's happened almost in contrast to how the squad has been built and reshaped for a certain style and a certain method and a certain philosophy. It's all been a bit off kilter. It's like about as off kilter as the East Stand is with the pitch, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's just never lined up.
No.
And all those things have spiralled on the back of what was already a losing way, a losing culture, a losing habit that come off last season, and everything that contributed to that. So if you were designing a bad season from scratch, it would look quite a lot like this one, wouldn't it? If you had a lot of money, but you were still going to design a bad season, it would be...
How not to run a football club, Carlisle edition.
Yeah, and it's staggering, really, because I've been watching Carlisle since the late 80s, And, you know, like anyone who's watched Carlisle over a period of time, you endure more bad times than good ones, don't you? That's true of most clubs. But I can think of some of the bad teams who avoided relegation somehow to non-league. Now, sometimes that's because there was one relegation place, but even then, even since, you know, they've managed to find a way to scrape out of it. And not often have they been to this degree adrift with so little time left. So it just points to it being such a horrendous failure, and it doesn't reflect well on much of the decision making and the acumen of anything that's gone into that. And you know, we hope this all sounds in hindsight like too much doom and gloom in a few weeks when we're safe and Mark Hughes is being chaired around the pitch after the Salford game. We'd all give our right arms for that, wouldn't we? But right now, as we sit here now, even that wouldn't be a celebration, would it?
No,
it would just be a massive relief. But that's odds against at the moment, isn't it? So
I think that point when Mark Hughes has said about the limitations and obviously the fitness of the players, I cannot get through my head how a professional footballer cannot play 90 minutes. Like, if you think these players can't play a full game, why are you bringing them in?
Exactly.
Like, that recruitment is piss poor, that, like, because you're looking then going, right, so you're bringing in, how many players have we, I mean, was it three at the weekend have played that were Mike Williamson signings?
Yeah. Started, I think, wasn't it?
That is, it's just so bad.
Out of the 11 that came in the January window.
And what was Rob Clarkson? We're buying players for Carlisle United's future to fit Carlisle's style of play. Well,
not for Mike Williamson.
I could literally pick. I don't even know how many's in the squad now because we've got that many players. We've got Paul Simpson's players, we've got Mike Williamson's players, free agents, loanees. Like you could quite easily go in there and probably pick about 5 players out of that whole squad that you'd happily go, I'd keep you.
I think what you've just said there is actually something I focused on, like you said about like the amount of different types of players we've got in that squad. It reminds me of a comment that Chris Lumsden made on the radio after the Harrogate game, and he said, Harrogate, you know, they've brought in young lads, they've got lads from non-league, and they've got veterans, and with those 3 key groups, they've made a core that is strong enough to stay in the Football League, despite the small budget and the small size of the club. And that seems like the exact opposite of what Carlisle have done. We've had the massive budget and the prospects of going even higher, and decided to pick fruits from so many different trees, and we've ended up with this complete combination that just doesn't work together.
Yeah, we've gone with that, like all sorts, haven't we, really? I mean, you think of all these different players you've brought in, even right back to when Simpson came, like that first, say we'll go from the Piatics when they came in, because that's really kind of when we got the money injection. So that January, you got like Luke Armstrong, you got that Sean Green, Harrison Neal,
Harry Lewis.
Yeah. So you got these players that were in League One, and you're getting League Two players or bottom League One. You're thinking that's not really what you want to be doing. We always seem like we're going lower because it's like, oh well. And I'm not saying there's no better players obviously lower than us, but there's that side. Then you go to the summer, and really with hindsight, and I know hindsight's a wonderful thing. Simpson, I think he did say he wanted to walk, didn't he? In the February, he was going to go upstairs. I'd heard from someone that he actually wanted to walk away.
Well, there's no.
So whether that's true or not, but Simpson probably should have left. With hindsight, I'm saying.
Of course.
With hindsight, he should have, because really, you look at where we've got to now. And I'm not saying it's Simpson's fault, but you've given him a full summer transfer window. You've brought all these players in, and I'm not going to turn around and say they're bad players, because I think some of the Simpson signings have been all right. Defensively, I think, you think Terrell Thomas, Sam Lavelle. No, Sam Lavelle wasn't good in League One per se, but he's been probably our player of the season this year. The top goal scorer as well, which says a lot, doesn't it? I think Archie Davies looks like a good player. The biggest thing for me is with just no firepower in front. You've got Charlie Wykin, who's
been injured
but he's injured, but he's at the last stage of his career. Yeah, a good signing bringing in. You bring Jordan Jones probably on the back of Charlie White coming in, really, because would he come if Charlie wasn't here?
Yeah, probably not.
Georgie Kelly, injury prone.
Yeah.
That is literally being said by Paul Simpson in another podcast, that the CEO was part of that whole thing, as well as a group of them now who, because Simpson's gone now. So
did he describe it as a gamble? Do I remember correctly?
Yeah, it was described as a gamble. Essentially, it was a risk because another player who they'd gone for that didn't materialise, and everyone knew we were desperate for a striker.
Yeah,
they took the risk, and it backfired, hasn't it?
But it's fun because that's the risk that you take of. That's all. This is what I don't get. Coyote, Another one, how he was injured the full season, wasn't he?
Pretty
and
much.
then the one to save us from obviously his injuries, he gets injured. You think, what the hell? Like, it's just no
It
kind
can't
of.
just be bad luck, can it? It can't just be bad luck. Like, you know what I mean?
I think you've got to be looking down and going, are you just almost getting players on the back of just going, look, when they're not injured, they can be good, as opposed to actually going, right, what's their injury record like?
You know what?
Are they worth the risk? Because really,
this is something that it comes down to some of the things that have been said this season along this journey of almost unbroken failure.
Yeah.
About the recruitment and the systems and the processes that were put in place. We were told that over the summer it was going to be a greater influx of data into the recruitment thing through StatsBomb, and I understand other avenues of that data, whether that's the source of it or the interpretation of it, and how that was all going to stack up with who was going to be overseeing that, managing it, and setting the terms of it, if you like.
yeah.
Now, Tom Piatek told myself in an interview, and probably did others after Simpson left, that he was very happy with the processes and how they'd been followed. And come the end of January, when we spoke to Tom recently, he said, look, Rob Clarkson, who has since come in, has followed the process and the setup and the system that has been set out to a T, and he thought he'd done an outstanding job in terms of some of that. And as much as that might be the belief, again, you come back to results, you come back to the outcome. How can, if those processes have all worked to the letter in some well-oiled machine, how have we ended up with such a wretchedly badly performing team that's been sort of progressively out of kilter with different appointments and individuals that haven't delivered, let's be honest too. So are those processes really producing the goods?
Yeah.
Are they so like unimpeachable that you can't look at them and say, well, hang on a minute, have they worked to a T? Have they been right?
Yeah.
Or is something, what's wrong in there? What's the bug in the system? Is it the data? Is it the extent of reliance on it? Is it the interpretation of it? Is it whatever else comes alongside it? Is it who's doing the final calls on some of these things too, and who's overseeing it? Because nobody can, with the right mind, can look at that and say that it's worked.
No,
you just can't. Whatever opinions you or I or anyone else might have on certain individual players, there's no body of evidence to say that this has worked. This has delivered what Carlisle wanted and needed. So these systems or whoever is operating these systems, etc. There's got to be problems and flaws in that, fundamental ones, hasn't there? Because if there isn't, why are we so adrift at the bottom of a let's be honest, a pretty average to mundane League Two in the large part,
If you look at any good run football club, you have a structure from top to bottom of everyone knows the roles, a lot of people, and the best they can get in each kind of thing. And I just don't think Carlisle's got that. I think it's almost like you're saying there, StatsBomb. Well, Rob Clarkson's obviously going to get the flack for this transfer window, but this is long before Rob Clarkson. This whole mess has started, I believe. It is. Because I think you think of the Simpson thing, right? Did they let Simpson just do everything himself? It can't have been. It can't have just been Simpson. You just get whoever you want, and that's it. Because if he's saying he's had this setup that was clearly there in the summer at the very minimum, it's not working. Is he the one deciding it? Tom, who's not really got a great deal of knowledge on the English football game.
He's not educated properly on English football.
So that takes me to the next question, which will be, who is advising the owners? Because that is one of the biggest questions we got when we said we're doing this episode. Who is advising the owners since they came in? Who are a group of people? I don't know what it is or who it is, but whoever it is not doing a good job, and is almost throwing these owners to the wolves because...
Well, there's that argument too, and it's interesting that that's been one of the most common questions that got thrown to you, because I put this question directly to Tom in the press conference the other week, and his reply was that it's something he's heard more from the media than from supporters.
Yeah,
now, and then with respect to Tom, he then went on to respond to that question, and he gave us his view respectfully. I think that response in itself almost answered the question that there might be a dearth of advice or feedback, because if those questions from supporters aren't getting to Tom, or if they're not being heard, there's a problem there, isn't there? There's a problem in the channel there. There has to be, because I wouldn't have asked that question had it not been on the lips of a lot of supporters.
Yeah, of course.
We heard it at the fans forum. We hear it on various other avenues, don't we? It's something that you do hear quite a lot. Hence me putting that to him. So that's one in itself. And I think there's also two ways to look at that question. It's one, who's doing the advising, what sort of circle are around the owners doing the advice, but it's also about the sort of preparedness to listen to whomever is giving that advice, and who are the owners and etc. Prepared to listen to, prepared to let into that circle, prepared to put their trust in. That's where it comes down to judgment on their part too. So there's two things on there, and without sitting in the meetings, without being party to a lot of that, there's a lot that we don't really know as much as we maybe think we do about who's got their ear the most and who are they leaning to the most, not just in the club but also contacts out of the club. Tom said he's made some good contacts in the EFL and at other clubs. We know they've got good relations at Bournemouth in the Premier League and things like this, so they'll have no doubt sought and received some knowledge from different avenues. I don't suppose for a moment they've shut their ears to that type of thing, but you ultimately have to question the calibre of whatever advice or whatever suggestions or principles etc. have led us to where we are now in terms of some of the decision making and how this sequence of things has unravelled so much. It just shows that something is lacking in the quality of it, wherever it's coming from. When you look at how can this be stopped from happening again. Yeah,
it's sad because you clearly see online, it's been seen that Jenna in particular responds to people when it's we need to be positive, and I think there's a level of positivity you've got to keep without being realistic. And I think when it comes down to it, I sometimes think, do you really understand what you've got yourselves into?
The gravity of the situation.
Having a football club, like a football club is not, just because you came in and obviously new ownership, we were on the up, we'd just been promoted, it just seemed like everything was opening up for Carlisle United finally, and then it's taken a hit because we're on the verge of double relegations, and the worst one being out of the Football League. Yeah. I think a few supporters probably thought, well, look, gone out of League One, going to League Two, rebuild, bounce straight back up, and then we'll be better set. I wanted to stay in League One, but that was fine. But falling out into the National League, that is unforgivable. And I just think, I don't know. It's like, it's like yourselves, like you've said, that you're saying about what the supporters are saying. I don't think obviously some people will be like a bit funny about stuff, but I don't think that whatever we've ever said advice.
No, they've always been.
Yeah, I actually messaged Tom too after, God, what game was it? I think it was after the Morecambe game.
Right.
And I messaged him directly on Instagram and I said, look, I've never seen an atmosphere like that. I was like, that's just is not the. It might be after Cheltenham actually. Remember when we lost Cheltenham?
Maybe it was
after a game. Anyway.
Could have been any of those. Couldn't
and
it?
I just put all these things. And I said, look, you need a proper football structure from the top to the bottom. I said, and I'm saying this as your mate. I said because I've been out, played pool with Tom, played footy with him.
Yeah, we played footy.
It's not to a level that we're just like kind of as an owner, like I'm just having a go at you. I said as your mate, and I'm not saying this to have a go at you. And he responded. He was like, yeah, hopefully. It was kind of almost like he'd obviously read it and he'd understood it to some extent, but it was obviously what his response could be. And I thought, there's so many fans that I reckon them fan forums I just think are an absolute waste of time at points, because you watch that and anyone that was in that, I don't think there was, other than the old boy that turned around and said your football's boring. Yeah. No one asked an actual damning question. And I think what was it? There was the one, and then obviously Nigel went, the maths is the maths. If we sack him, nothing's going to change. Yeah. And I just think that in itself is just an absolute...
That quote doesn't fill you with hope, does it?
No, maths is the maths. I just don't get how you can say something like that when...
The club's in the situation that it's in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't Nigel's finest hour. That I'd be surprised if he argued differently, to be honest. Because, 3 years previously, the maths were still the maths when it was Keith Millen coming to the end, and changing the manager. Did it change the maths then?
It did.
Well, it didn't change what was needed, but the results changed the maths of what we got. So that has been a bit of a noose, I think, that's been around Nigel's neck since, and it wasn't a particularly impressive comment, I don't think, in the circumstances. And look what happened next. What was it? Less than a month later.
Yeah, well, this is what
they did change the head coach, and they did what people had been calling for much sooner.
Yeah.
Before a Mike Williamson fitted transfer window could take place. Now I know there was the argument by Rob Clarkson at that forum that if you got rid of Mike now, a lot of these signings we've got lined up wouldn't come. Well, with the greatest of respect, with what we've seen since, how hindered would Carlisle have been had that not happened, and had something else happened?
Would we have been better off?
And would they have been totally hobbled and hamstrung from doing something different in the market? Then was that the limitation of the contacts and the work that we're able to do? And if so, that's another question, isn't it? So those things again goes back to what we were saying before about this season just being out of shape, and the timing of things just adding up to something that hasn't worked. And going back to the point on the advice and what they're listening to, I'm sure they do hear more than that reply from Tom the other week sort of indicated. I think there's probably one or two other aspects to it too. I know when the Piatics took over and they were explaining their business background and their ethos and things, they were very big on how they, I think, looked after people in business. They talked about in COVID, not laying people off in COVID when obviously lots of businesses were doing that. And I think they promoted themselves as a people first kind of organisation, family, etc. And I think not all of that, but I think some of that might be a bit inherent in how they give Paul Simpson time more than perhaps in hindsight they maybe would have done given the time again, and perhaps how much they allowed Mike Williamson more slack than I think most supporters probably would have given him, and ultimately to the detriment, because look where we are.
Do you think the Paul Simpson one was fear? Because I think it is. I don't think they wanted to sack him. I think they knew if they did sack him, they were like, what if this next person we bring in doesn't work? And then it looks back and goes, you could have kept Simpson. I think they wanted him to work, and I think they wanted Williamson to work, because really, I said to you multiple times, it should have been sacked after Markham, and as the very least, very latest, it should have been Tranmere, and just gone, right, this just isn't working. I just don't get how, we said it on that message to Carlisle we did, how a football stadium, your home fans are singing sacked in the morning, that's the end. That is the end. Someone should have gone up and said, if they didn't know themselves, someone in the club should have gone, I'm not being funny.
We need to call it here.
You need to have a serious meeting, because that's not normal.
Yeah. I think, one of the fundamental things with Williamson was he was their first appointment. Wasn't he? It was their first decision in terms of that, in terms of who was going to take us forward. And he was also the proponent of this switch to a style of play that was fundamental to the vision that they'd set out and would sort of redouble set out even when things weren't going so well initially. So I suspect a reasonably large part of that made it harder for them perhaps to stomach the idea of cutting this thing short much sooner than they would ever have wished that they'd have had to do, and that maybe contributed to it going on longer than it should as well.
Williamson might have worked if he came in at the start of the season and he'd got all of his players. I just think he's he'd probably go to a championship team and do well, because that style of football on the higher ends probably does work, but it was this lack of change it up, because it was just the same stuff. And really, I know people can say about Armstrong, but every striker we brought in, I know Wyke had a bit of a tough time getting his first couple of goals and then he got injured, so take him out. I don't think we've brought in a good forward in probably the last, since we've been promoted. I don't think we've brought one. Luke Plange, Sean Maguire, Armstrong, Kelly.
That list of names just doesn't fill you with much hope, does it?
He was in front of them all. Dennis,
Matt Dennis,
Kevin
Scott,
Hugel.
Kevin Scott, Joe Hugel.
The thing with Hugel is, I actually don't even think he's too bad. I just think he's too young and he's not got the physicality for what we need right now. I think if we were doing better, he probably would flourish a bit more, but the pressure's on. He probably is the best finisher.
It's
up front.
So what you're saying is we needed more hardened
stature,
hardened criminals. I think it was either Greg Abbott or Keith Curl used to call hardened criminals. Players of a certain personality, probably a bit of physicality, a bit of nous.
A taller Joe Garner.
Yeah,
just an absolute, just a horrible guy. And you could have had someone playing off him. You know this whole thing Simpson used to have, like little and large playing off him. How many times did we see Luke Armstrong and Sean Maguire playing? It was just like, this isn't, or Luke Plange and Sean Maguire, and it just didn't work.
Because you see the void that's left, because Mark Hughes immediately, one of the first things he said after taking charge of maybe 1 or 2 games at the most was, we're lacking a certain physicality here.
Yeah.
And you think, hang on, we've just come out of a transfer window where we're trying to save our skins in League Two.
And we're lacking physicality.
And we're lacking a physicality at the top end of the pitch. And I know, I'm sure Mark Hughes would probably dearly love Georgie Kelly to be fitter now and more reliable now, because I'm sure he'd be starting for that reason, as he would have done more under Simpson and might even have done under Williams.
If Kelly can stay fit to the end of the season, I think we'll have a chance.
That's
because I do think it's
such an if, isn't it?
Exactly.
And I never like it when I see people having a go personally at Kelly, as if he's chosen to be.
It's like ripped his calf in half,
or that he's somehow milking it or anything like that. I don't think that's fair or particularly helpful.
No, I don't think that's his character.
But the point remains, he hasn't been able to be physically reliable enough to be relied upon. So therefore, that was known going into January. Mm-hmm. It was known Charlie White might not appear again this season, and even if he does, it's going to be at the tail end when he's probably not anywhere near
change anything.
So the inability or reluctance or whatever it was to get in that profile of striker that you could hinge your team on in that respect until Mark Hughes said, right, we need something desperately here. Matt Dennis is in the building, we're going to have to give him a go. For you to make 11 signings prior to that and not one of them fit that profile, again, it goes back to whose eye is guiding this, who's guiding the ship, who says that, and and then it comes down to judgment, doesn't it? And has the judgment been right or wrong? Well, there's only one answer at the moment, isn't it? Because look at us.
Do you think you think of these strikers? I mean, Williamson's style of play was lots in midfield, one up front really, and the midfield is perfect. You see it all the time. You see it with different players. Man United do it at the moment, and it leaves a striker isolated. So you've got to have a very good striker or a number 10 that can play in that role, like here, Kedwin Scott, who can play that role. I think it's backfired on them. I think they should have turned around and thought, as a precaution, I think we just get a little bit more up front, even a wing, like an Amari Patrick or someone like that could go into that position and actually do some damage, because you've basically gone and got, how many loan players have we got and how many young lads?
But they're not getting in the 18 now, are they? Because Hughes has decided right now. I'm not going to quite lean on that. I'm going to lean a bit nearer towards experience. That's Josh Vella, who has got a lot of critics and hasn't pulled up too many trees, let's put it kindly either, but he's leaning closer to the likes of him.
He wants the experience to try and drag us out of the relegation battle, and really that's what should have been brought in. And I think what should have happened
we desperately don't really have, isn't it?
It shouldn't have been back him so much. When you look at it, we spoke about it the other week, and it was saying about how they've literally brought a whole new team in. Do you think the club closing off the doors to maybe, that comment about the media, and obviously we've put forward, and we know some of the other lads that do football, their fan channels, have put forward about asking, for a comment, like a bit of an interview, a small thing, just to question maybe Tom Piatek or Nigel Clibbins or whoever, Mike Williamson we asked for as well, just to kind of say what's going on at the club, just to give that kind of fan. I think it's very different to do it through Carlisle United media, because it's very much, the questions are, with all due respect, the questions are all the same every week. It's the same questions. They kind of probably know what they're getting, and you watch like yourselves or like BBC Cumbria. They're the ones that people want to listen to, because you ask the questions that the fans actually want to hear. It's not that kind of, I don't want to ask that in case some dodgy said. It's all very much. Do you think that the club could have used, not just us, but like other people, to maybe get a voice across, to maybe show what the real long term is, and maybe that kind of, it's not just behind a paywall with CUTV or whatever like that. It can be, and using comments like, the media have spun it more, as opposed to actually going, no, really, a lot of the fans are all thinking this.
Yeah, possibly on that point, in particular, that's probably quite a relevant one. It might take away some of the filter in that respect.
Yeah.
the club has made great play of being a club that's big on fan engagement over the last few years, and it's had high accolades and credit to them for that. But yeah, I take your point. I don't think I particularly disagree with that. I mean, look, since the Piatics came in, by and large, I mean, I can only speak from my own point of view as a person in the media.
Yeah.
The access has been, to someone like Tom, for example, as the owner, has been much more frequent than it was under the previous regime. In the end, certainly, since the days of Fred Story, perhaps it was pretty accessible in a slightly different media time. It must be said, we're going back best part of 2 decades here. There wasn't CUTV then. There wasn't clubs operating as larger media organisations in their own right in the same way. So that there were fewer filters, barriers, whatever you want to call them then. But certainly since then, the ownership since then, from 2008 to 2023, got progressively less open in terms of being available. So the Piatics came in and said, look, we appreciate there's been a bit of a void in the past, we're going to be different. They lived up to that initially, and over the piece you probably have to say they have. Although, I think from Tom's most recent interview, the time that elapsed since the one before that was a bit longer. I think there was a sense of a void, partly because they'd set the terms of saying, look, we're going to be very open, accessible. You kind of never hear the end of us type of thing. So in that respect, it has been different, which we should probably acknowledge. And I think that the rest of it boils down to where the club sort of sees itself now in terms of that sort of output. There's obviously been an accent towards it being much more in-house, the growth of CUTV, and it's still kind of in its infancy really, and how that's going to go. I always think the football club should be mindful and be careful on the sort of tightrope between just operating like a subscription media organisation. Yeah. News and Star charge for subscriptions as well, so I'm not going to be a hypocrite on that. But a football club is something different to a newspaper or a radio station or a podcast channel or whatever. It's still a hub in the community. It's still something people are looking to in different ways. It's something people are spending a lot of money on already in other ways too. And I think maintaining as much accessibility as possible as a guiding principle, and being as open-doored as you can be within the structure that you've set up for yourselves on different revenue streams, etc. I still think that's got to be paramount, and it's something they've got to be very mindful they don't lean too far one way, I would say. I don't think, if it got to the point, it might have done for some, it might not have done for others, where people think that too much of it is now locked away from them in terms of access or whatever they can consume. Then I don't think that's particularly the right and the broad picture healthiest way to be. But I know everyone will have different views on that, and I think once you've set up something like CUTV and you're charging £5 a month for it, that's delivering a certain revenue. There'll be an imperative to continue that and to keep growing it. I'd like to think it shouldn't be to the exclusion of too much else though, and I just think that's something that they have to be cautious on.
Because they did charge, didn't they, when they did the Tom Paddock, and then it was uproar, and then all of a sudden it was the next morning they're like, it's free for everyone to watch. Yeah. And it's like stuff like that can't be behind a paywall. That's what it
shouldn't require that sort of report to release it.
Tom said he'd come on, didn't he?
He did.
He was so far
in March of last year, I think.
I think something like that though could perhaps have been softened with a bit of messaging, perhaps, as if to say, look, if you want to watch it first, it's on the subscription channel.
Stay beforehand.
We are conscious that this is an important message from the chairman. You'll be able to read it or whatever in the coming days or something.
Something like
priority would go to the subscription. But that might have been a less less annoying message maybe than just here it is, you've got to subscribe to watch it, we've not heard from the guy for months, we'll fight a relegation battle, things like that. Just think that was maybe the judgment call.
It's almost like, and then
not more so than what actually happened, because they do still have a number of paying subscribers who'll say, well, what am I getting for my money too?
I wouldn't have minded.
Just as we do at the News and Star too, there's a lot of there's a proportion of things I'll put behind the paywall. Some of them I'll release for free later, some of them will stay there. So I understand the principle of why they would do that, but again, I think maybe it's like it's the reading the room of
knowing what to put where.
Knowing what to put where, and knowing maybe how to accompany that with the messaging of it. You know,
like, don't look like you're always doing stuff on the backlash of what fans have said to you. Like there might have been a thing of going, do this, and in 24 hours time or 12 hours time we'll put it out.
Yeah.
But it's looked like it's been the fans have given you stick, which is a couple of things they have done this season, and then all of a sudden it's been changed and something's done. You think you should just know that. You know, I get. It's like you said, the paying subscription. I completely get that side of it, but something so important as that, it's like I wouldn't have cared. Say if they turned around and gone, this is to pay for. He's also done one with you, and one with BBC Cumberland, one with us, one with someone else, and they're free to watch. This one is a bit more in depth if you want to watch it. Fair enough. There's other outlets to watch it, but to put it behind a paywall and then almost feeling like the backlash of like, oh, right now it's free. It's like it just looks like a bit of desperation. Do you know what I mean? As if like it's turned that way. But can I nip to this out quickly?
Pardon?
Can I nip to this
Yeah,
out?
you can.
Just pause this.
We've got like 20 minutes left on the camera, so.
Right.
One of the big talking points, I suppose, is, and you know, we've tiptoed around it in this video a little bit. We've spoke about it in brief stints. Carlisle United at the minute look National League bound. That looks like the most likely outcome. What the potential ramifications of this are massive. They're absolutely massive on the football club. I suppose my question to you is, you know, given Carlisle do go down, where do we go from there?
It's a big question.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah. It's such a big question to which there's a range of answers, really, aren't there? I mean, look, Carlisle United going down into the National League at any time is a pretty devastating thing. It's some sort of debacle, isn't it, that's resulted in that. Carlisle going down in this particular era with the investment that's gone into the club is an even bigger one, isn't it? So that, you know, that determines the mood of you as you go down, which is one big thing in itself, because, you know, it's only happened once before in the club's history, when they went down in 2004. When they went down, the mood had started to rise again because of the change mid-season with Simpson replacing Roddy Collins. The team he'd rebuilt midway through and almost come from nowhere to nearly stay up. And Carlisle went into the conference then in probably as good a spirit as you could ever have thought that, you know, it was possible, really. And then that led to a momentum that you know, got them back up by hook or by crook. It did. We wouldn't be going down on anything like that sort of wave this time.
Not at all.
It would be a wave of recrimination and, you know, who knows, depends, it would, you know, a degree of resignation by the end, I think, if this thing doesn't, unless Hughes and the team can go on some sort of spirited, you know, battle to the line where they do close the gap and it does come down to a knife edge, and if they go down kicking and screaming in the end. There's an amount of grace given there, but even still, that the wider picture is still a really bad one of how on earth has it come to this. So where do they go from there? Where would they go from there in terms of the head coach? Does Hughes stay if Carlisle go down? Would he want to stay if Carlisle go down? There's two parts to that.
I don't think he would. I don't think he would,
you know?
stay on. I don't know. I think if we stayed up, I think he'd maybe. I don't even know if he'd stay up if we. I don't know if he'd stay if we stayed up.
I think he would, unless something
He's
bigger
gonna
came
have to
along
have
to him.
an overhaul of that club.
But I think he's made noises, and the club have that. Ideally, both parties would like this to continue if everything's right. And I think Hughes would be prepared to, unless something from higher up came to him.
Of course.
I don't imagine he's lost any of that ambition to work at a high level or anything. People like that probably do, but I think that there are signs that he would stay if Carlisle stayed up, because he'd be a certain kind of hero, wouldn't he? If we
he probably would be. Yeah, I mean,
and I think there'd be a momentum to keep him then as well, and then he would obviously have to be backed and empowered to take absolute charge of the thing, and to try and sort it out for the longer run.
You just imagine how many players he'd want to get rid of as well. You think of the players that aren't getting played now that are available. They are not going to be in contention.
So how many of those are going to be? Now, but you've got players under contract.
contracts.
Of course.
Some with a fair amount of length still. So how do you manage that? That's another problem Carlisle are going to have.
And that side of it, obviously, people are saying that, you know, like Embleton's on like 3 year. There's other players on 3 year contracts. The thing is, if Embleton was absolutely flying, you'd be going, brilliant, 3-year contract. As a minimum, if we sell him, we're going to get a decent amount for him. But it's because we're going bad at the moment that it's not going to work out. I just, for me, I can't, I'm very much optimistic in terms of football. I'm always like, no, you never know. I do believe that the next 3 games completely different. I think if Carlisle lose on Saturday and the results go against them, I think that's us done. I think that is us done.
You've got more hope than me. I think we're going already, to be honest.
No, but the only thing I think is, I just have this vision. I saw it months ago, even when we had all many games left. It was like months ago. I remember saying to Adam, I looked at the last game and I said, do you know, honestly, I have this feeling we're going to stay up against them lot. I said, I know that's miles away and we've got so many points and we'll surely be out of it by then, but I said, I can just see Salford, Carlisle win 1-0 against Salford in the final game of the season. And it being
like... Alright, then we're sorted.
He says it's going to
recording.
Stop it here. We're staying up.
Basically, Tom Payette, I'm a mystic, so to be fair, I'm not being funny. How many times have I said results and got them right?
Yeah, but this is a big result it's a big result to call.
I do genuinely think we're going to the last... If we do go to the last game of the season, if we can get something in between then...
Yeah, I think that's key, because,
You've got to look at the games we've got. They've got Markham away, Accrington away... Like their games,
they'll be saying
we've got Carlisle.
Carlisle at home here. My God, we've got to.
And because Accrington's out, what I mean is like Carlisle looking at that going. You could be going into them games going. You're taking all the it'd be a sell. And if we're still in the race to stay up, and you think like them 2 games could be what keeps us in it. Like, we've still got a game in hand as well.
I think it's the games. I mean, I don't know if you share the opinion or if you share the opinion. Tranmere away and Harrogate away. Those 2 games proves to me that we have a team who can't handle pressure away from home. I think Tranmere, we didn't even look at it whatsoever. Harrogate, let's be honest, it wasn't a stellar performance. We held on and fought for our lives against, a team that, with all due respect to Harrogate fans, they haven't got a big ground, they haven't got a loud crowd. You know what I mean? But even then, we crumbled, and at the last hurdle we fell. And I feel like you take us into these massive away games, Markham especially, massive away game we've got coming up, and like you said, Markham will be right up for that. I just don't see us getting anything from that.
By then, I'm saying if we get to that point, Carlisle have obviously got into some good form, because to get to that point, you'll have to be in some decent form. You've either had a couple of wins, draws. You're still going to lose a couple of times this season as a minimum.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, it's just like you've got to be. I still think it'll be 4 teams in it. I think it'll be Markham, us, Accrington, and Harrogate. Because I
don't think Accrington are outside.
Do you not think they can get pulled in?
I think they're outside.
I mean, the 5-0 the other night was a bit like...
Are we going to make up 12 points on somebody? Can you honestly, realistically say
if you win the game in hand, and it's 9 points...
it's not happening,
we've still got to play them, so you beat them then, it's 6 points, and they will drop 6 points, surely. No, but if you're being realistic about it, it could be done. It's not like, they're 20 points clear.
But I think you say realistic. What's realistic at the moment isn't that, is it?
Well, no, of course
based on form and results and record, what's more realistic is Carlisle are adrift and having to scramble just to even cling on the coattails of these teams. And really, I think Ollie's right. Before we start thinking about those games, I don't think we can afford to at the moment, because we've got 3 games at home and our home form is abysmal. The home record is certainly. I know Hughes has had 3 draws, so he's unbeaten and he's winless at home. So it's not been terminal under Hughes, but over the season, 2 wins, 12 goals out of 17 games. Last season there was only 3 home wins, I think, as well in the full season. So
the numbers are dominant.
Park, it's been horrendous. So that's why AFC Wimbledon, Bromley, MK Dons. To me, now this is the hinge of the season before we go to Doncaster, Chesterfield, Accrington, Morecambe, and those ones on the running.
These are the massive games, aren't they?
Absolutely, and I think if you can't make some use of being at home,
you might as well.
Then you've got no chance in this sort of battle. Some kind. It's got to be some sort of strength at some point. So, even if you might not win all your home games, you've got to win some, and you've got to make it some kind of place where this lot of scrapping for the lives. It's in some way a horrible place to come. And 1 or 2 teams will trip up there. That's what it's got to become now. If Carlisle can't make it that in the next 3 games, if that gap is at best the same, at worst even bigger, it just looks like too much to me. If they can close it, if they can narrow it even a bit by the end of the Bromley game, then that MK Dons game is then huge as a game in hand. Then you can see that a bit of momentum, like you said, could come there off results, but I just think it has to come off these next 3 home games.
Yeah.
You've got to be looking at something like 7 points out of them, haven't you?
Yeah.
And that's going to be quite a sea change from what we've been getting at home, isn't it?
I think a win against Wimbledon, like, no disrespect, I think at home, if you've got a win against Wimbledon, you'd fancy against Bromley, because we did look better at when we were down there. We actually looked like we could have got a win there. I mean, maybe I'm still in the land of make-believe. I'm just almost like hoping we stay up as opposed to residing to we are down. But there's just part of me thinks there's no way on this earth Carlisle is surely going to go out this league without, even if it goes right down to the last couple of games and they go out that way, there's surely no way on earth Carlisle are going to be out in the next 3 games.
I wish I had optimism, I really wish I did.
I
wish I had optimism.
It's very hard to cling on to that optimism when you look at the reality of what we're seeing in terms of goal scoring. And in terms
that's the biggest thing, isn't it? Exactly. I wouldn't even say the back line's been bad. I just think it's like it gets to a point how it's like League One. You can't defend for 90 minutes and not expect. I mean, what was it? Harrogate, and he's just stuck a toe
it's
out.
Come off Josh Fella's like
I think how does it look like?
Someone's always going to come through. Isn't
Question right now: do you think Carlisle can stay up?
Is this to everyone here or just?
No, we know what you want because you're depressing.
Do I think?
Do you think?
Do I think they can?
Do you think?
Or do I think they will?
Both, I suppose.
Oh God! Yes, they can. They can. It will need a lot of the stars to align, though, won't it? You know, it'll need some performances like we had at Barrow, where we got a relatively early goal.
Digging and
that's what I mean. A game like Barrow.
But this is something. I mean, I was asking Mark Hughes about this today. You know, how can whatever good things he's to some extent getting, how can that be harnessed into wins? And he said, well, at Barrow, for once we had something to defend. We had a lead to defend. And he said, you know, we've not had that much. We've not had that at home yet. I haven't been in the lead at all since he came in. I've barely been in the lead at home games all season. I think I looked at the numbers on this. I think I've got this right. We've only been in the lead at home in 4 games this season.
Yeah, that's bonkers.
4 out of 17 of your home games, you've been in the lead. Never mind.
That's damning that. Like,
how many have we lost?
So 12. So it's the lack of any kind of muscle memory of being in that position, isn't it? And psychologically,
the back-to-back thing
to do with it.
That's one thing I constantly think. If you won, right, let's argument say you win against Wimbledon, you win against Bromley, you've killed the back-to-back thing. You're then going into that MK Dons game, even if you get a win and a draw or 2 wins or whatever. You go into the MK Dons game on that Tuesday night, and it's got to be rocking in there because it's got to be then looking going. We have got a chance. Yeah. And Carlisle, out of everyone, to be honest, anyone in this league, I think Carlisle's got the best fans. But definitely, in this relegation battle, the amount of people you see online, I hope Carlisle don't go down. The fans are absolutely unbelievable. Yeah. And they are like, this is one thing you almost want to shout at the owners and the players going, you are so lucky that you have us still, because there's so many teams like, fuck this, I'm not watching this.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and they just walk away. Whereas you look at the numbers we sell out away grounds, you're getting like 7,000, 6,000 fans going down, even on Tuesday nights, and you're looking going, this is absolutely bonkers. And I mean, the roar when Carlisle, if they got like a last minute, how many times is one Walsall game? Yeah. At the end, I was nearly on my knees, like just begging for it to go in. I'm thinking, if that had gone in.
Because they say the fans pull the ball into the net when they're loud.
I just wonder, is Carlisle leaving it all these moments we need to go our way until all these last games? So it is a final day decided.
It's moments, isn't it?
It would be, in results terms, as remarkable as any survival as ever been.
You'll know more than anyone, John. Carlisle don't do it the easy way.
Well, they don't do it
Jimmy
the easy way.
for instance.
No, I know, but Carlisle, no, they never do it the easy way. And there've been some horrendous seasons where it's tortured your nerves till the very end. But at the same time, there's not actually been that many when they've been this adrift for a period of time with this length of time to go. Even the season of Millen handing over to Simpson, there were only about a point adrift then when that happened. And that felt like a great escape, which it was. It was a stunning great escape, and others have happened previously. This one, if Carlisle can put together out of 11 games enough wins and results to keep them safe, that would be such a the graph going so far vertically from what we've seen.
Such a magnificent achievement.
Well, I don't like to use the word achievement.
Well, not achievement, but a magnificent relief.
In the context, it would be,
definitely.
So that's why it's Yeah, I think I think these 3 games are vital. You know, in the dream scenario, Carlisle beat Wimbledon on Saturday. They beat Bromley through some sort of Harry McCurdy, Byron Webster hybrid own goal or something, and then 89th minute, and then they go to the MK Dons game where, you know, Joe White, the Carlisle lad, forgets who he's meant to be playing for, sticks one in the other.
That's what you need, isn't it?
These things, you know, could these things just happen?
These moments
in this fantasy world, and then we're cooking, aren't we? But the reality is it'll be more stressful than that. We just have to hope that a couple of wins come through, whatever method, whatever luck, whatever injustice to the other lot.
Anything at all, yeah.
I think
anything at all, because one win over the line at this point at home
would just be
could give you a wind at your back that we're desperate for.
Well, we've got 4 minutes on the camera.
Well, if you put up on the graph the table currently right now,
do you have to?
You have got rock bottom Carlisle United 27 points, but they have a game in hand of everyone above them.
Yeah.
But you've got 27 points Carlisle United, 29 points Markham, 33 points Tranmere, 39 points Accrington, and 40 points Harrogate. You know, the others above, it's like a couple of points within it, but it's going to be a task. I mean, if any of you players are watching this, if anyone's watching it, please, when you're feeling tired and you're feeling knackered, just you want to do a rallying cry to them, don't you? You want to be like, literally, when you're feeling tired, when you're feeling shattered, just look at them fans that are cheering you on and just don't give up. We still believe in you. After all this season, we still believe you can keep us up.
Yeah. People still go to the games, it proves it, doesn't it?
Yeah, the backing we've given you, please show it back. Please keep us up in this league, because I will be in tears if we don't.
It'll be in tears either way, this time, won't we?
Yeah. You know, the club and everyone, the team, the players, everything's so diminished by going into non-league.
I know.
Becoming a non-league club, even just saying it.
That's disgusting.
You don't want to even think about it, do you?
No.
So, Carlisle staying up, yes or no?
Oh, that's a yes or no is a big one.
Are you saying? Are you wanting a prediction now? Is that what?
Yeah. Do you think Carlisle can stay up? Yes or no? Because this will be one of these where we look back. Is he willing to put his life on the line?
It is heart versus head, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it isn't. And heart as a fan, I'm like you. I can see this
last minute
of the last day, because it's Carlisle, because we've seen it so many times. Is there a twist yet?
Do you know what else makes us think it's Salford, run by, was it the class of '92? Who grew up with?
Oh, well, Mark Hughes. Doing friends an old favour. Doubt it. I really want us to, want us to.
Is stars aligning? I don't know.
We need a lot of stars to
I'm going to say they're staying up, but if we lose to Wimbledon, we're going down.
Fair enough. I think I'm the same as you, I think.
I'm struggling. And, I don't think, look, being a journalist or whatever isn't about how great your predictions are. There's no reason why it should be.
Nothing can ever really be predicted.
Any more informed or see the future better than anybody. With head over heart, you just look at where we're at, why we are where we're at, what we're getting at the moment, and are Carlisle going to win minimum 2 games more than Tranmere, 1 more than Morecambe? There's no evidence to say that's going to happen yet. There isn't. So in that respect, the answer is no. They're going down.
Right.
Unfortunately, and I desperately hope that
you're wrong.
Doesn't happen, because the thought of it is so damning, it's so devastating, and it's so upsetting as a thought. And it's upsetting to even say that I think it's likely that Carlisle are going down than not at the moment.
And you think we're going down?
I do. I'm the same as John. I think my heart, obviously, every part of me wants to stay.
Can you not see match day vlog? Carlisle stay up last minute of the game.
I'd love to see it, but I don't think it's happening.
400,000 views.
I just don't think it's happening as much as I want it to.
Well, if you're watching it, boys, we still believe in you. Thank you all very much for watching this special edition with John. John, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for your time.
We will catch you whenever
we're back.
Hopefully, when you next see us, Carlisle still in the race for staying up.
Fingers crossed.
We're not down and dead. But thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you next time.
Ta-ra.